Hello everyone. Today we will continue with our topics of statistical physics. We have seen until now the classical statistics that was proposed by Maxwell Boltzmann, right? We have already derived the distribution law. We have seen some application of that statistics. Now it is time to learn about quantum statistics and related distribution law. So today's topic is quantum statistics and related distribution law. Uh, the objective of today's lecture the objective of today's lecture will be to understand the Bose-Einstein distribution law and to understand the Fermi-Dirac distribution law. But first, we will focus on Bose-Einstein, and if the time remaining, we will discuss about Fermi-Dirac. Otherwise, we will go for the next lecture. Okay, so the outcome after attending today's lecture will be you will be able to learn about the indistinguishability of particles, and then you will get familiarized with the details of Bose-Einstein distribution law. So here is the content of today's lecture. The first topic is indistinguishability of particles and its consequences. You already remember that Maxwell-Boltzmann statistics apply on the particles which are identical and distinguished. But now we will talk about, definitely identical particles should be there, but we will talk about the particles which are non-distinguishable. Okay, so here one very important distribution law, that is Bose-Einstein distribution law. We will learn about this Bose-Einstein statistics and related distribution law in today's lecture. Here are the reference books which which you can study further for better understanding of these topics. So let us start with the first topic, that is indistinguishability of particles and its consequences. So actually we have to follow some rules for this indistinguishability. So the consequence of this indistinguishability of particles in quantum statistics can be explained in the following manner. We will see one by one actually. So first we will start with the classical statistics, and then we will see how it changes to quantum statistics. So first, to explain this, let us consider that there are 2 points of collection. You can see here these, and only 2 cells to be occupied. So P and Q are 2 points of collection, and these are 2 cells which are to be occupied. Now we will first see, this is example of classical statistics. So in classical statistics, each particle is having a individual identity, so that has a recognizable individuality, we can say. Okay, so that's why we consider that for classical statistics the particles are distinguishable. Okay, and each particle of that as likely to be in one cell as in other. This is equally possible. This means that in classical statistics, either one particle or both of the particles can occupy any one of 2 cells. So there are possibilities of total 4 arrangement. How it is possible? In one cell there is P particle, another cell it is Q particle. Similarly, in first cell it can be Q particle, in second one is P. It is just a vice versa of this. And then another combination is having both particles in first cell, the second cell is completely vacant, and the last option is just opposite of this. The first cell is vacant and the second cell is occupied by both of the particles, right? Now, after understanding this classical way of statistics to distribute these particles in two cells, we will understand about the quantum statistics. Now, in quantum statistics, again there are two different branches. One is Bose-Einstein statistics and another one is Fermi-Dirac statistics. So let us start with Bose-Einstein statistics first. Now, in Bose-Einstein statistics, actually the particles lose their individuality, right? So that's why they are indistinguishable. Actually, this is the case in Fermi-Dirac statistics also, but somehow it is different from Fermi-Dirac, as we have discussed in our previous lecture. It is differentiated on the basis of spins which are associated with these particles, right? So we should concentrate now our attention on the cells rather than the particle. There in the classical statistics, what we are doing, we have done these two particles P and Q and how they are distributed. Now in quantum statistics, we can say that we should focus on that how each cell is filled with the number of particles. So there is only three possible arrangements, because there is no matter whether P goes in first cell or second cell, these both should be considered as similar cases. That means these particles now cannot be distinguished. So that means they are very similar and it is difficult to differentiate them. That's why either this particle is here or there, it does not affect anything. So that means there are only three possibilities. One possibility, so that means these two are the common things to consider in Bose-Einstein statistics, right? And the other two are quite similar here. You can see one and one in each box, each cell, and here the two particles in first cell and two particles in second cell. The other cells are empty or vacant, right? Now, it is important to understand here that this one does not follow Pauli exclusion principle. But in contrast to Bose-Einstein statistics, if we go to Fermi-Dirac statistics, it is totally opposite. In Fermi-Dirac statistics, all the particles or molecules, they obey Pauli's exclusion principle. Okay, according to that, actually, now it is the same case. Other things are very similar to Bose-Einstein. The first thing is particles are indistinguishable. That means we do not need to concentrate on particles. Each particle are very similar and it is difficult to differentiate them. So we should focus on the cells, how the cells are filled with particles. Okay. Now in this case, in contrast to Bose-Einstein, as I told you, these are obeying Pauli's exclusion principle, and according to Pauli's exclusion principle, it is not possible for any cell to have more than one representative point, right? So each cell should contain only one particle in any case. In that case, these two arrangements are not possible in Fermi-Dirac statistics. Only one case will be possible. That means the cells will be filled by one particle in each cell, right? This is the arrangement for Fermi-Dirac statistics. So that is defining the indistinguishability of particles and their effect to be considered in different statistics. The first one was classical, the second one is Bose-Einstein, and the last one is Fermi-Dirac statistics. Now, in this lecture, because this is also very long and time-taking topic, so we will concentrate only on Bose-Einstein distribution law today, and in another lecture we will discuss about Fermi-Dirac distribution law. So let us start with this distribution law. Actually, both of these statistics, they follow Planck's hypothesis. When Planck has proposed their quantum concept, and according to that, according to Planck hypothesis, all the radiations, they are in a temperature enclosure are composed of light quantas. They are in the form of energy bundles and they are known as photons. Each of the photon that has energy of h into nu, where h is Planck's constant and nu is the frequency of photons. Okay, so this concept was given by Planck and that was the basis of whole quantum mechanics, quantum statistics, everything. So according to this hypothesis, Bose have established this distribution law. So all these photons in the enclosure, we are considering that there is some enclosure where all the photons are inside. These photons in the enclosure are indistinguishable. That is the first condition to apply Bose-Einstein law. So that's what we are doing. The photons are indistinguishable, and that is true because each photon has equal energy. So it is difficult to differentiate them, right? So according to that, Bose and Einstein has proposed some postulates and these postulates are pointed out here. The first point of their postulate is all the particles of the system are identical and is indistinguishable. This is actually very common postulate with that of Fermi-Dirac because both statistics follow the same condition for this point. Second point is any number of particles can occupy a single cell in the phase space, which we have already defined. Each cell can have any number of possibilities. There we considered only two particles or two events. In that case, we considered, okay, there are four combinations. But if there are three particles, all three can go into one cell and the other cell can be vacant. Or maybe it is a combination of 1 and 2, 2 and 1, or 0, 3. There can be lot of possibilities. Any number of particles can occupy a single cell in the phase space. The next point of this postulate is the size of the cell cannot be less than h cube, where h is Planck constant and the value of Planck constant is given by 6.6 into 10 to the power minus 34 joule second. This concept, this postulate, we have already seen in our previous lectures when we were trying to define macro state, micro state. That time we have defined according to classical statistics and according to quantum statistics. And that time we have seen for classical statistics, the size of cell can be as less as possible, as less as we want. We can define its size as small as 0. There is that possibility also exists. But according to quantum statistics, it is not possible to have a size of cell less than h cube. Okay. The next point is the number of phase cells is comparable with the number of particles. That means the occupation index FEI, which is given by this function, FEI is given by Ni upon Gi equals to 1. This is another important postulate and we will use it to derive our distribution law. Now the last point of these postulates are Bose-Einstein statistics is applicable to particles which is having integral spin angular momentum, and that is in the units of h upon 2 pi. Okay, all particles which obey Bose-Einstein statistics, they are known as bosons. They have named as bosons because it was discovered by Bose, Satyendranath Bose. Okay. Now, to derive this distribution law, let us consider any system which is consisting of n independent and indistinguishable particles. All the particles have definite energies and they are occupying definite position. These all are, we have already discussed in postulates. Now we are considering to derive this. So that means because of these two conditions, they can be completely represented by phase points in the phase space because they are in the different phase cells, right? They can be represented by phase points. Now, if we want to calculate the energy or momenta distribution of these particles in most probable state, right? That is the highest thermodynamic probability state. If we want to calculate the energy or momenta distribution, we can divide the total available volume in the phase space into larger number. For example, we are considering here as K, that large number of compartments, and these compartments are known as quantum groups or energy levels, right? Now we are considering another thing, that each compartment represent a small interval of energy if we are considering energy calculation, or otherwise we can consider is momentum also. Now if we divide each compartment into elementary cell, and that cell size cannot be less than h cube, so we are saying that the size of each cell is h cube. Now we are assuming the last point, that the size of compartment is very large as compared to the size of cell. So that means each compartment has a lot of cells equal to the size of h cube. So there is large number of elementary cells exist in one compartment. Okay, now let us considering in the quantitative way, like we are considering that there are n1, n2, n3, ni, and so on, nk particles having mean energy values, that is e1, e2, and so on, eia, and so on, ek respectively, in compartments that are numbered as 1, 2, 3, and so on up to k. That each compartment has contained G1, G2, G3, and so on, Gk cells respectively in all of them. So the total number of particles in any system, in that system, will be small n equals to n1 plus n2 plus n3 and so on plus nk. Now let us focus on this compartment, ith compartment, which has ni indistinguishable particle, and these are distributed in Gi cells, right? Now if we suppose that Ni particles are arranged in a row and distributed among Gi quantum states with Gi minus 1 partitions in between. So the total number of possible arrangements of particles and partitions is equal to the total number of permutations of Ni plus Gi minus 1, right? Ni is this one and Gi minus 1 here. So if we add this, we will get the total number of possible arrangements of particles and partition, right? Therefore, the total possible ways of arranging Ni particles with Gi minus 1 partitions will be Ni plus Gi minus 1 factorial. This all concepts we have already seen when we were describing macro state, micro state, or these are the systems in statistical physics, the basics of statistical physics. That time we have considered how we can get the permutations, how we can get the combinations. So that's what we are using these concepts, right? Now we know that the particles are indistinguishable, so the rearrangement of particles among themselves will not give rise to any new distribution. There will be no other new distribution. Now, according to that concept, the number of total meaningless permutations will be n1 factorial, right? This the same thing we have considered for the Maxwell classical distribution law, right? This is very similar. Theory is quite similar. The only thing we have considered the different sizes and different distribution. Okay? Now, due to this, above result would be divided by n1 factorial. This result will be divided by n1 factorial. In addition to that, this also includes permutation of Gi minus 1 partitions among themselves. So these permutations also do not produce different states, and that's why they are also meaningless. And that's why the above result will also be divided by factorial Gi minus 1. And that's why the actual number of ways in which these Ni particles are to be distributed within Gi cells in ith compartment will be given by W equals to ni plus gi minus 1 factorial divide by factorial ni divide by factorial gi minus 1. Okay. Now similar expressions can be obtained for other compartments. Now we have considered only for ith compartment. This will be the same applied into other compartments too. So the total number of different arrangements for all the n particles gives the thermodynamic probability. That means W, N1, N2, Ni and Nk, we will do it for first compartment, second compartment, third compartment, ith and so on up to kth compartment. So that's what we have done. Just we have put I equals to 1, 2, 3 and so on. So that one N1 plus G1 minus 1 factorial divided by factorial N1 factorial G1 minus 1. And similarly for the second compartment, this is the same figure which we have used here, and for the kth compartment it will be nk plus gk minus 1 factorial divided by factorial nk into factorial gk minus 1. Now if we summarize it, we can write it into total product form. So total product form is represented by this sign. W, N1, N2, Ni and so on Nk will be total product over I equals to 1 to k. We can write this Ni plus Gi minus 1 factorial divided by Ni factorial into factorial Gi minus 1. This is the total probability. Now we will consider it for getting most probable microstate. Okay. Now what is the most probable microstate? We have already defined this. The most probable microstate is the state which has maximum thermodynamic probability, right? Now since we know that each of that Ni and Gi are very large number, that's why we can neglect this one from this expression. The expression will become W, N1, N2 and so on Nk equals to total product of Ni plus Gi factorial divide factorial Ni factorial Gi. Now we are going to apply this maximum thermodynamic probability, and we have seen in our earlier lecture, for maximum thermodynamic probability we should do first log, because log is very simple to handle mathematically, and then we will apply the other conditions. For example, we will apply Stirling approximation, and finally we will put the differentiation of this equals to 0 to apply this maximum thermodynamic probability condition. Okay, so first we are taking logarithmic both sides. It will become ln w equals to, when we take the log of total product, it will change to total summation, right? So it will become equals to summation over I equals to 1 to k. In this it will become ln ni plus gi, that is this one ln ni plus gi factorial, minus this one minus ln ni factorial minus ln gi factorial. Now we already know that we have already considered, and this is true also, this ni and gi are very large number for a given system, and if these are very large, we can apply a Stirling approximation here. And what Stirling approximation says ln x factorial equals to x ln x minus x. Okay, this is our Stirling approximation, so we are applying it for here, and it will become ln w equals to, inside summation, ni plus gi ln ni plus gi minus ni plus gi, right? This one. Now we will do the same thing with this expression. It will become ni ln ni, and minus minus will convert to plus ni. Now the same thing with this also, minus gi ln gi minus minus plus, so plus gi. Okay, now if we look at this expression, you see here ni plus gi with negative sign will cancel out with ni plus and gi. So this and this will cancel out. What will remaining? ln w equals to summation ni plus gi ln ni plus gi minus ni ln ni minus gi ln gi. Right? Now here gi is not subject to variation, whereas ni varies continuously. Right? Gi is does not affected with the variation. Right? And Ni is totally varies continuously. We know the number of these cells are continuous. So Ni number is varying continuously. The particles can go here and there easily. Now, if we want to get the state of maximum probability, what we have to do, as I told you, we need to differentiate and then we'll take it equals to 0. So the same thing we are doing here. We are taking logarithmic del ln w equals to taking del here, taking differentiation here. We are writing del ni ln ni plus gi plus ni plus gi 1 upon ni plus gi del ni, because it was ln ni plus gi. So it becomes like this, minus del ni ln ni minus again for this ni into 1 upon ni del ni. So if you see here, this one will cancel out this. The remaining term will be minus delta ni. Here ni plus gi will cancel out ni plus gi. So again this one delta ni. But this is with positive sign and this one is with negative sign. So this term and this term will cancel out. The remaining term will remain as summation over I equals to 1 to k of del ni ln ni plus gi minus del ni ln ni, and that will be equals to 0, right? Since these two are logarithmic terms, we can combine it together. You see here del ni is common, so we are taking it outside del ni into ln of ni plus gi. This is with negative sign, so this ni will go into denominator, right? Ln of ni plus gi divided by ni equals to 0, right? Now we can change the order, and if we change the order, if we exchange numerator to denominator, the sign of ln will change. So that means if we do ln ni plus gi upon ni equals to minus ln ni upon ni plus gi, but it is equals to 0, minus sign will go to 0. So the remaining term will be del ni again ln ni upon ni plus gi equals to 0. This is our equation number 1. That is important equation, and then we will continue to calculate the distribution law. In addition to all this condition, what we have assumed until now, our system should also satisfy two auxiliary conditions. What are these? The first one, we already have defined this. The first one, conservation of total number of particles. That means total number of particles in any system remains constant, and that's what we are putting here. N equals to a constant, and what is n? That is summation ni, right? If we do del n, then what we'll get? Del ni here, and that constant will be 0. If we differentiate this equation, we will get the final equation as this one. That is equation number 2. The second condition is conservation of total energy of the system. That means total energy of the system always remains constant. That is E equals to constant, and E is given by summation Ni Ei, that is constant. If we differentiate this equation, we get del E equals to summation Ei del Ni equals to 0. That is our equation number 3. Now we will apply Lagrangian method of undetermined multipliers. So we will take some multipliers like alpha and beta. We will multiply these multipliers with equation number 2 and 3, and then we will add these expression to equation number 1 here. We will add this equation with this equation multiplied by alpha plus this equation multiplied by beta. So what we are getting here, del ni is common from all the terms. We will get ln of ni divided by ni plus gi. This is equation number 1 part. Second is plus alpha, that is equation number 2 part, and third one is beta ei, that is equation number 3rd part. That is equals to 0. Now as and delta ni are independent of each other, the variation delta ni totally independent of each other. That means the inside term should also be 0 out of this summation. This term will be 0, and that's why we are putting here it ln ni upon ni plus gi plus alpha plus beta ei equals to 0. Now if we arrange it, we get ln of Ni divided by Ni plus Gi equals to minus alpha minus beta Ei, right? We can change the sign here, and what we get is, if we make this positive, what we get is ln Ni plus Gi divided by Ni. We have just reversed the order of this, and it will make this positive. So that is equals to alpha plus beta Ei, right? Now if we take logarithmic on the other side, what it will do, it will change this Ni plus Gi upon Ni equals to exponential alpha plus beta Ei, right? Now we will solve this again. 1 plus Gi upon Ni equals to e to the power alpha plus beta Ei. So from here we will get the value of Ni as equals to Gi upon e to the power alpha plus beta Ei minus 1. That is our final equation, equation number 4, and that equation represents the most probable distribution of the particles among various energy level for a system that are obeying Bose-Einstein statistics, and therefore it is known as Bose-Einstein distribution law for an assembly of bosons, because all the particles we are considering here in this method are termed as bosons since Bose has proposed this theory. Now, if we substitute the value of beta that we have already calculated long back, beta equals to 1 upon kt, then equation 4 will become, equation 4 will turn into Ni equals to Gi upon e to the power alpha plus Ei upon kt. We have changed beta equals to 1 upon kt. It was beta Ei, so it will change to alpha plus Ei upon kt minus 1. Now we will calculate the Bose-Einstein energy distribution function, right? The energy distribution function f of Ei is the average number of particles per quantum state in the energy level Ei, and that is given by Fei equals to Ni upon Gi, right? Now Ni upon Gi value we can get from this equation, and that will change the equation into Fei equals to, now putting the value of Ni upon Gi, that is 1 upon e to the power alpha plus Ei upon kt minus 1. Now if we consider a continuous distribution of energy, the distribution function can be written as function of E equals to 1 upon e to the power alpha e to the power Ei upon kt minus 1. We have just separated it out and changed Ei to E, because this is a contribution distribution, continuous distribution of energy. Now we will see Bose-Einstein energy distribution law for continuous variation of energy. Now we will change it to Ne into dE, because we are considering now continuous variation of energy. So when the energy levels of the systems are very closely packed, they form actually quasi-continuous spectrum. In such cases, if Ge into dE is the number of energy states between an energy range of E and E plus dE, then the value of Gi will be given by this term, Ge into dE. Now similarly, if we consider that Ne into dE is the number of particles whose energy lies between the energy range of E and E plus dE, then Ni can also be written as Ne into dE, right? Ni equals to Ne into dE. Now substituting this in equation number 5, what we get, equation number 5 was this one. So we can write Ni as now Ne into dE, and similarly Gi can be changed to Ge into dE. So Ne into dE equals to Ge into dE divided by e to the power alpha plus Ei upon kt minus 1. That is our equation number 8. Now since this Gd quantity denotes the density of a state, right? Now if we consider any system which is consisting of free particles with no spin, then Gd can be written as 2 pi v into 2m upon h square to the power 3 by 2 into e to the power half into d. Now if we substitute this value of GD in equation 8, what it will become? Any dE equals to 2 pi v 2m upon h square to the power 3 by 2 into e to the power half d divided by this term will be as it is, e to the power alpha plus ei upon kt minus 1. And this is known as Bose-Einstein energy distribution law for continuous distribution of energy among free particles with no spin. Right? That's all about Bose-Einstein distribution law. Now, in our next lecture, we will learn about the Fermi-Dirac statistics. Right? Fermi-Dirac statistics are considered for different particles. They are known as fermions. Okay. So that will be our final lecture for this course, Thermodynamics and Statistical Physics. So today we will solve some quiz questions to understand what we have learned today or before the previous lectures. So we will solve these quiz. The first question of quiz is the entropy in terms of probability can be given by S equals to K log W, S equals to K into e to the power W, S equals to log W, or S equals to e to the power W. So the right answer for this option A, that is S equals to K log W. Entropy is equals to the constant into log of probability. That is famous Boltzmann entropy probability relation, or we sometimes call it Boltzmann entropy relation. The second question of today's quiz is, as the temperature approaches to 0, the entropy of a system approaches 0, approaches 1, approach constant value, or option D, increase. So this is related to third law of thermodynamics, which says that when the temperature approaches to absolute 0, the entropy of system reduce and reach to some constant value which is independent of system, and that is represented by S naught. That means the right answer is option C, approaches a constant value. The third question is, in the equilibrium state, probability is maximum, beta parameters of two systems are equal, both A and B, and option D is number of particles is maximum. So we have learned about equilibrium state. This is a state with maximum probability. And the second thing for this beta parameters, we have defined a function, beta function, that is also equal for both of the system which are in thermal equilibrium, right? So that means these two are right answer, and according to that, our option number C is the right answer for this question. Now, the next question is, out of n particles in a gas, the number of particles having exact the most probable velocity is 0, and n by 2 or 1. Definitely this number will be 0. So the option A is the right answer for this question. Now, the emission current is given by J equals to A naught t to the power half e to the power minus phi upon kt, J equals to A naught t square e to the power minus phi upon kt, or C option is J equals to A naught t to the power half e to the power phi upon kt, or option D, J equals to A naught t square e to the power phi upon kt. So we have seen the limitation of Maxwell-Boltzmann statistics, and there we have introduced the example that emission current is given by J equals to A naught t square e to the power phi upon kt, so minus phi upon kt. So the right answer is option B. Now the next question is, the value of h cut is given by h upon 2 pi, h upon 4 pi, h upon 3 pi, or h upon pi. So this value you should remember. The right answer for this question is option A, h upon 2 pi. Next question is, the thermodynamic probability of a system in equilibrium is 1, minimum but not 1, maximum, and 0. So we know the Maximum probability state, the equilibrium state is defined as the state which is having maximum thermodynamic probability. We have just employed it in our Bose-Einstein statistics also, right? So the right option is option C. This is maximum. Now the next question is, deduction of Planck's law is possible on the basis of Fermi-Dirac statistics, classical statistics, Maxwell-Boltzmann statistics, or Bose-Einstein statistics. So Planck's law is possible to deduce by Bose-Einstein statistics. The right answer is option D for this question. The next is, boson particles obey Pauli's exclusion principle. Is this statement is true or false or can't say or sometime true, sometime false? So we have seen the classification for Bose-Einstein theory and Fermi-Dirac theory. Bose-Einstein does not follow Pauli exclusion principle, whereas Fermi-Dirac follow Pauli's exclusion principle. That means one cell can have only one particle, one molecule, or whatever in the system. So that means this statement is false because boson particles follow Bose-Einstein theory. The right option is option B for this question. Now the last question for today's quiz is, photons obey the Bose-Einstein statistics, Maxwell-Boltzmann statistics, or Fermi-Dirac statistics, or none of the above. So we have seen today, we have taken an example of photon and we told that photons follow Bose-Einstein statistics. That's why the right answer for this question is option A. So that's all for today's lecture. I hope everything is clear to you. If you still have any doubts, any queries, please feel free to write it in the comment box. Please feel free to ask me by email. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for listening today's lecture. For the other lectures, you can consult with our YouTube channel, that is Suresh Gyan Bihar University School of Applied Sciences. Okay, thank you so much.